Okay, I'm very excited to have on the Goldstein on Gelt Show TEDx speaker, international best-selling author, and an award-winning speaker, Corey Poirier. Now, you may have seen him on TED, or perhaps you've heard one of the thousands of interviews that he's done with what he refers to as enlightened superachievers. But if, by the way, you yourself are a speaker or are interested in becoming a professional speaker, at the end of the show, Corey said that he's going to tell us about a launch that is happening right now with only a few days left to get involved in the speaking program, which he is going to be bringing to the world to help people who want to get to help people who want to become professional speakers. Corey, a real pleasure.
Absolutely, Doug. I'm really excited to be here today.
So one of the things that you have this amazing access to is having spoken to people who are amazing achievers. Like me on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, I have the opportunity to speak to really, really neat people like you, but you've also spoken to thousands of people. And one of the things I'm looking for that I'd like you to share with our listeners is, what are some of the positive personal qualities that you think are necessary for someone to be, well, not only successful, but let's say to be successful in the world of investing?
I would say probably some of the top qualities, I'm going to say probably first and foremost, I really feel that, and this is what I've seen too in, as you said, thousands of interviews, is a personal passion for what they are getting involved in. I don't think that can be overstated, because a lot of people say you don't need a passion if you're making money at it. But my experience is people won't stay consistent and stay the long haul and stay as long as it takes, whether it's investing or whether it's related to personal achievement. They won't stay the course if it's not something that they're in love with or something that they're personally passionate about in the first place. So I would say that's probably one of the most important personal qualities. And then I would say, second one would be, oh, sorry, go ahead, Doug.
Well, let's dive into this. I'm a little afraid we're not going to get beyond number one, but I think this is very important. But I'm afraid that the concept of personal passion might sound to someone like, well, I really have to love money to be a good investor. Is that what you mean?
I think it's more important that they love why they're doing it. So, what is your reason for it when it comes to money? Is it personal freedom? Is it related to because you think that you can change the world? I mean, Steve Jobs was known for saying that, his purpose was to put a dent in the universe, i.e. change the world with his products. So I'm sure, his idea of investing in Apple or other companies he later invested in, like Pixar, he was passionate about them. So he was passionate about what the company he was investing in actually spent their time doing, and let's say the purpose they were serving. So I really think it comes back to being passionate about why you're here, why you're doing the investing in the first place, and what the investment, what it's going towards helping, what's the cause it's serving.
I'll tell you, Corey, I heard an interesting speech probably around 20 years ago by a fellow named Howard Jonas, who was at the time a multi-hundred millionaire. And he said, he was in the telecommunications industry, and he said in his speech that he and his wife donated 20% of their income to charity. And I remember thinking, wow, that's really cool. I want to be like that. And I went home and I said to my wife, hey, I heard this guy Howard Jonas, and this is what he said. And we decided that was going to be our goal as well, to donate 20% of our income to charity. This was well before we had a big investment company that made it a little bit easier. But that was the personal passion. So it was no longer about, oh, how rich can I get? It was how much good I can do. So though most people don't know Steve Jobs, a lot of people, I think, can relate to this story. All right. So other than personal passion, what else does someone need to have in order to become a top investor?
I would also say that they need to be focused on learning. So, I talk a lot about lifelong learners being leaders. And so I really feel that, and again, this is another one that probably applies to both, investing, but also personal achievement, is you have to have a love for growing and developing. And, they say once we stop growing, we might as well start dying, because as humans, I believe that's what we're looking for, is growth. So I believe learning. So when it comes to investing, again, goes back to that point. Do you know what you're investing in? Are you spending the time to learn about that organization or who's going to be using your money? Are you actually feeding your mind? I mean, that's what I call it, feeding your mind. We spend so much time feeding our body that sometimes we forget about the importance of feeding our mind. So I would say on the learning side.
All right. So we're personal passion, pro learning. Give me one more. of a trait that someone's going to need to become a top investor?
Also, I would go and maybe even go one step further and say that they also should hire for their weaknesses. Not everybody's going to be, and I said they should spend time learning and find out that it's going to the right place and something they're passionate about. But at the end of the day, still, if they're not the expert or they don't have a passion to become the expert in the investing side, if that's not their dream or passion to become the expert, then I really feel they have to seek out the expert. And, as we say, hire for their weaknesses. Also, I would say if investing is not their core business, then, there's another great, I think it was Michael Gerber that coined this, of the E-Myth. And he basically said you should spend more time working on your business than in your business. So again, if it's not your core thing, then I think you should, first of all, hire for your weaknesses and get the right people by you to make sure that you're making the right decisions. And then secondly, not spend all of your time in that world if that's not your passion area.
Mm-hmm. As a pitch for Michael Gerber, he's been on the Goldstein on Gelt Show a couple of times. If listeners missed those great interviews, just go to YouTube and look up Goldstein on Gelt and Michael Gerber. He wrote The E-Myth, a fantastic book. We are talking with Corey Poirier, who is, perhaps you've seen him on TEDx, perhaps you've seen him on stage. He is an award-winning speaker. In fact, at the end of today's interview, Corey is going to be telling us about a course that he's launching this week, which is teaching people to become professional speakers. And I hope you can hear just from the way that he's able to answer questions, he's got a lot to teach for anyone who wants to get into the world of speaking. Corey, let's dive into personal financial success. Everyone wants to have personal financial success overnight. People these days, and we don't have to talk about how technology has fed this obsession with things happening instantly, but people want something to happen quickly. It doesn't. That's the reality. So how do you suggest people should deal with the failures that are inevitably going to happen along the path to financial success?
I think it has to do with bigger picture. So, to have an understanding of the bigger picture. So if you think on the, let's say we talk the stock side of things, things go up and down, but if you look over the long haul, it always basically, I'm going to say, corrects itself and works itself back out. So it goes up and down just like the price of gas or anything else. So I really think it's having an understanding that it will swing and come back around. And so, as they say, and everybody, it's not not saying it's right or wrong, but, timing your investments only works for a small portion versus the people that stay it over the long haul. So I would say really at the end of the day, it's a matter of having a big picture perspective. Just like when it comes to running a business or when it comes to your personal life, and you're having a bad day, to realize it always comes back around. It can't stay dark forever and it won't stay light forever. So I think it's having that same perspective, and how you do that is look at the history, or maybe, like I said, you surround yourself with those people that can give you the right advice and get them to show you the history to prove to you that you shouldn't just jump as soon as you don't have an immediate success. And then I would say the other secondary part might be diversification, so that you're not having all your eggs in one basket. And again, for somebody that's listening to this on the personal achievement side, it's the same thing there. They say you should, and I agree with this, you should have your niche figured out, but I think it also is beneficial to have backup plans. So I've heard Anthony Robbins say that he has his business that he plays in, and then he has his business that is there as a rock solid business for the money. So he has a business that makes sure that he always has that income there, and then that allows him to take a lot more risk with the second business. So I think diversification and then understanding the big picture.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up Tony Robbins. I recently heard an interesting fact about him. In fact, I think he told us that he also is a huge giver to charity. And in fact, he's involved with one of the charities that feeds the hungry. And he said that he has bought already 100 million meals for people. And he's yet another person you can look to and say, wow, he really started with nothing and built himself up. But I really think a big part of building himself up was his desire to help other people. And by doing that, he ultimately was able to help himself and continue to help people in a scale that the rest of us would just dream of. Corey, tell me something. One of the things that people often do is they put up their own barriers to success. They make themselves unsuccessful. If you could just give us maybe one of the things that people should stop doing that's stopping them from being successful that might help them to open up a little bit, what would you suggest?
Probably, I have a talk called The 5 Weeds that you should pull from your life. So I'll draw from one of those weeds, if you will. And I would say probably a big one today, I mean, this has changed over the years, but it's more prevalent today than ever before, is the technology dependency weed. So I think what people can stop doing is, and you and I are actually able to do an interview like this thanks to technology. I use various technologies every day. I'm doing a launch where I'm going to be taking advantage of emerging technologies. At the same time, I think we can get dependent on it. If we use our phone as the example, we can get to the point where all of a sudden we're focused more on the phone than we are the person. And I think that's where we run into challenges, or we see a couple that's at their table and, there's a family of 4 and they're all on their phones and not talking to each other. Well, I think we bring that from home into the work world or into our business life. And I think it's a recipe for disaster. So I think one of the things that people should stop doing is relying on the device and making it the priority.
All right. I think that sounds like fantastic advice. And that's very true. Just by sitting and watching your phone all day, it's not going to make you a better investor. Corey, we are just about out of time, but in the last few seconds, just tell us, what is the speaking program about and how can people learn more about you and your work?
So the speaking program, essentially, Doug, I kept getting questions from people about how do you launch a speaking career, or how do I start charging fees? I've been in the speaking business for a while. How do I start charging fees? And entrepreneurs, whether they're business owners, investors, what have you, people saying, how can I use speaking as a leverage to grow my business or get my name out there or grow an audience? So essentially, after getting those questions, I decided, why don't I launch a 90-day program to help people do just that? With the program, we decided to bring on a bunch of experts in addition to myself. After all these speaking engagements that I put time into, I decided to bring on some experts and get them to also dive deep and tell us the secrets and also the fundamentals that they've learned over the years. And essentially, we're sharing this with, as I said, potential future speakers or people who want to use speaking to grow their business and or their personal life. Okay, that sounds fantastic. And where do people go to find out about it? It's pretty easy. They can simply take a trip over to thespeakingprogram.com, and it will provide all of the details. Okay, we will put a link to that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com to bring people over to Corey Poirier's newest launch, the speaking program. And I trust from there, Corey, as well, people can learn more about the other work you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. We haven't added a link just yet, but it's going up right away. So I say that if people want to go and find me in other places, the other way I'll say to connect, or the other way to connect would be thepassioncure.com. And if they go there, they can read my blog, listen to our show. They can actually go onto there and check out our social media links as well. All right. So we will put links to all of that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Corey Poirier, thanks so much for your time. Thank you, Doug. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.